And so in this video we focus on recruiting front-end web developers. Okay, so I have created this mind map to explain what are the common requirements, what are the technical skills that front-end developers usually have, or the tools they use, and eventually what you can ask a hiring manager, how you can screen candidates, what can you ask candidates. Okay, so let's dive right in. Let's keep this short and sweet. So the brief just explains that front-end developers are usually responsible for creating the part of the website that the users interact with. They use programming languages like HTML, CSS, of course JavaScript as well, to design and build the user interface. By the user interface, we are usually referring to a website or something that a user can interact with. Okay, so it can include some buttons, some forms, there could be a menu. So front-end developers work closely with designers just to make sure that the website looks good and is easy to use. They may also be responsible for optimizing the website for users to make it faster, or for search engines, and that's the SEO, search engine optimization. So to ensure that it loads quickly and it is responsive on different devices. Okay, so to keep it short, this is the role of a front-end developer. If you have this booklet, you can also just open up different profiles by clicking the link, and you will quickly see a few examples of front-end engineers. So the common requirements include obviously the web development experience or the skill itself, with especially focus on the front end. Let me just change the... Yeah, now it's better, much better. Okay, so especially on the front end, okay, they focus on the front end. They use programming languages such as JavaScript or TypeScript. They may also use both. So if you have a hiring manager who is looking for a front-end developer, you know for sure that they either use JavaScript or TypeScript or both. HTML and CSS, these both are a must. A front-end developer cannot really work without HTML and CSS. So these two are considered the default skills. They would use one of the frameworks like React, Angular, Vue.js, Ember, and there are lots of these frameworks, but at least one of these three, React, Angular, Vue. And then on top of those frameworks, they would use some libraries such as Next or Nuxt or RxJS. So this E, Next, is related to React. That's how you can remember it. And Nuxt with the second character U relates to Vue. So if they use Vue, they would use Next. If they use React, they would use Next. Okay, so that's how you can really easily remember these frameworks and libraries and which one goes hand in hand with the other. They would also obviously need to test the application with either Mocha or Jest or Cypress, probably Selenium. So they would also store the code on Git with, probably they use GitHub or GitLab or Bitbucket, one of these three providers. They would also use the cloud to host their scripts. So, by hosting the scripts, they would need to store the code in a Git repository, but then once they deploy to production, it would be hosted on a cloud, so either Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud or Microsoft Azure. They also quite frequently use Docker containers. They would use continuous integration, continuous deployment pipelines. They would use some automation. So this is what pretty much every front-end developer does these days. That's what you can expect as common requirements. And when I have a client who says like, hey Michael, we need a JavaScript developer, then I don't really have to ask too much about all of the requirements. It's sort of obvious. But then the question is, what are the deviations in that specific case? By deviations, I mean that something may stand out, something may be slightly different. So for example, do they require some specific industry background, or do they mix this position with some other position as well? So do they mix a front-end with a back-end developer? Do they look for a full-stack developer? And then specifically, do they use either JavaScript or TypeScript? Then which framework do they use? Do they use React or Angular? Because these are just examples. A front-end developer would use one of these, but specifically, which one do they use? Are any additional tools required? Something that is even beyond this standard list. And then what about some non-technical requirements? By non-technical, we are usually referring to industry background or experience with product companies or the types of projects the candidate has worked on. Just to give you an example, we have a client who only wants to get people who have experience with product companies or startups. So they don't want people who worked as freelancers or for some consulting companies. Is this job on-site, hybrid, fully remote? How can we downscale the requirement is obviously for us in recruiting very important question. For example, you can go through the requirements and ask the manager, would only 3 years of experience be enough for you to invite the candidate for an interview? Is experience with framework Angular or React really necessary? Okay, so replace the X with the specific framework they use. And then, of course, the most interesting part for the candidate would be to learn more about the team, about the product, about the company. So how do you sell the opportunity? Or if you are the account manager, then how does the recruiter sell the opportunity to the candidate? Is there anything interesting about the team or about the product of the company? Are any interesting challenges ahead of the software engineer? Who would this opportunity be a dream job for? One of my favorite questions. So once you learn more about the team, the product, the challenges, the technologies, then you can come up with a more meaningful pitch for the candidates. And then once you start getting some candidates through the doors, then you also want to qualify some of them to invite for an interview. So I prepared just these 5 prompts. Obviously, you need to fill in the blanks based on the specific requirement. So I just like to start with something like, do you have at least 3 years of experience with front-end development? Have you worked on what? Have you worked on an application that was related to financial domain, or have you worked on a fintech product before, if the company now is in fintech as well? Have you worked with Angular latest version? Angular is the framework. Are you able to lead a team of 3 junior front-end developers? Can you work from the office in Berlin? Okay, and then you can also start sourcing candidates, so for example on LinkedIn. And obviously you need to consider different titles these people may have. For example, someone with front-end developer or front-end engineer would be obviously a good fit, but probably even someone like a full-stack developer or full-stack engineer or software engineer can also be a fit, assuming the software engineer would know JavaScript or TypeScript and Angular or React, etc. Or someone who has a very straightforward title, React FE developer. So FE stands for front end. So it could just be front end engineer, FE engineer. Yeah. And then you go deeper, you may introduce some more keywords to your search on LinkedIn. If you use LinkedIn Recruiter, you can type the query such as Angular or React or React.js or React.js. Because if you only type React as one word, then you would miss out on all these other profiles that have React.js on their profiles with the dot. Or there are lots of people who have React.js written as one word without the dot. So if you come up with a boolean like this, you would be able to increase the size of the talent pool. Or another abbreviation would be JS or TS for TypeScript. So TS or TypeScript, JS or JavaScript. front-end development or front-end development. And then once you get people through the doors, you start screening candidates, you invite the best ones for an interview, then you start asking them questions. For example, do you use JavaScript or TypeScript when you develop a new application? What's your favorite front-end framework and why? What's the most beautiful website you have created? What's your standard workflow when you are building a website? When building a website, do you build the desktop or mobile version first? What's the size of the largest development team you have worked with? What's the most challenging web application you have developed? Okay, so with this, you have a few ideas on how to start recruiting front-end web developers. Obviously, there is more to it, for example, regarding the pitch to the candidate, so how to pitch the opportunity. There is also another mind map. I don't recall from top of my mind on which page it is, but it will be somewhere in the recruiting strategies part, so you can also explore that one. Obviously, the self-assessment qualification questions, that's a skill itself, to come up with really good, straightforward questions that would help you get the right candidates on call. And obviously sourcing goes much deeper as well. So with this, we are still just sort of scratching the surface. You can expand the keywords. For that, I organize the sourcing webinars every Thursday. So if you are the member of the Tech Recruitment Academy, or if you join some of our training programs like the Booster program or the Masterclass, then you can join the sourcing webinars and learn more about how to find qualified candidates for some of these technical positions, so that you can earn some more bonuses, more commissions, and have a better feeling that you are the professional tech recruiter. So if you would like to purchase these mind maps, get access to all of my mind maps, you can just go to the website itrecruitermindmaps.com, and you will be able to download the whole booklet with all of these mind maps. There are over 50 of them by now. Some of them focus on the programming languages and frameworks IT professionals use. Some of them go much deeper in analyzing the technical requirements. Some of them focus on specific positions, like recruiting full stack JavaScript web developers. So this is very cool. Like if you recruit IT professionals, then you should get this booklet quickly. So just go to the website itrecruitermindmaps.com.